All right, let's dive into Being Mortal today.
Oh, this will be good.
This book by Atul Gawande.
A surgeon and a writer.
Yes, surgeon and writer. He really gets into how modern medicine, you know, tackles aging and dying.
The big stuff.
The big stuff.
Or doesn't tackle it, maybe.
Yeah.
As the case may be.
As the case may be, it's going to make us think about those later chapters.
Absolutely.
In a whole new light.
You know, what makes Gawande's perspective so unique is that he's coming at this from both sides.
Yeah.
As a doctor who sees the limitations of the system, but also as a human who's grappling with these questions personally.
Exactly. So our mission for this deep dive is to use his insights, right? To figure out how we can approach these big questions of mortality, find meaning as we age, and ensure those final chapters are filled with dignity and purpose.
Yeah, I think what struck me most was how Gawande lays out this paradox. Medicine has gotten so good at keeping us alive longer, but it hasn't quite figured out how to deal with the complexities of simply being old.
What are some of the consequences of that disconnect that you see?
Well, one striking example he gives is how the place of death has shifted. Back in 1945, most people died at home, surrounded by family. Now it's the opposite. The majority of deaths happen in hospitals or nursing homes. So it's become a medicalized event, almost like we're trying to fix death instead of accepting it as part of life.
He contrasts that with a story about his own grandfather, Sitaram, who lived to almost 110 in India.
Wow.
Cared for by his multi-generational family.
That's amazing.
It really makes you think, what have we gained and lost with this shift?
It's a huge question.
Right.
On the one hand, we have medical advances that can alleviate suffering and prolong life. But on the other hand, have we lost something in terms of that human connection? The comfort of familiar surroundings, the acceptance of death as a natural part of the cycle.
And it's not just about where we die, but how we decline. Gawande talks about these three main trajectories of decline. Sudden death, which thankfully is less common now.
Good.
Decline from a specific disease like cancer. And then this long, slow fade that comes with old age.
And that slow fade is where things get particularly tricky because it's often not one single problem, but a cascade of smaller things piling up. He even points out how things we take for granted, like our teeth, become more vulnerable with age.
I was blown away by the fact that our brains actually shrink as we get older.
I know.
And it's not just a number on a scan. It has real consequences. For our vulnerability and cognitive abilities.
It highlights how aging isn't just about getting weaker or sicker. It's a fundamental biological process. And the way medicine is currently set up, focusing on individual problems rather than the whole picture, often isn't equipped to deal with that kind of complex decline.
So how do we support people who are navigating this slow fade and start needing more help with daily life? Because that seems to be where the tension between autonomy and a system focused on safety really comes into play.
Exactly. Gawande uses the story of Alice Hobson, a woman who was thriving in her own home, but faced pressure to move into assisted living after a series of falls. It really gets at the heart of that dilemma. How do we balance someone's desire for independence with their need for support? Especially when those needs are constantly changing.
He doesn't sugarcoat how tough that balance can be. Especially as we think about the history of care facilities. He takes us back to the poorhouses of the early 20th century. Then through the rise of nursing homes and assisted living. It's a journey that makes you wonder, are we really doing any better now?
That's the irony, isn't it? These facilities are designed for safety and care, but too often they end up stripping residents of the very things that make life meaningful. Control over their environment, the ability to make choices, a sense of purpose.
It's almost like in trying to protect people, we accidentally make them more vulnerable in a different way.
And this is where Gawande introduces us to Karen Brown Wilson, who had this radical vision for a different kind of assisted living. Imagine apartments with private kitchens, bathrooms, even lockable doors. Things that seem basic. but were revolutionary in the context of traditional care facilities.
From what I understand, she really wanted to bring that sense of home back into assisted living, right?
Absolutely. Residents could choose their furniture, have pets, even have a say in their daily routines.
Yeah.
The goal was to foster individuality and independence, not erase it.
It sounds almost too good to be true.
I know, right?
Did it actually work?
The results are pretty remarkable, actually.
Really?
Research on Wilson's model showed improvements in residents' health and overall life satisfaction.
Wow.
And all of that at a lower cost than traditional nursing homes.
Okay, so now I'm really curious. If this model was so successful, why isn't it more widespread?
Yeah.
It feels like there's always a catch with these things.
You're not wrong.
Yeah.
Sadly, many assisted living facilities today have drifted back towards a more institutionalized approach.
Okay.
The focus on appearances and minimizing any potential risk often overshadows the goal of supporting residents' autonomy.
So we're still wrestling with that fundamental question, aren't we? How do we ensure that life remains meaningful and fulfilling,
Right,
even when our bodies and minds start to decline?
That's exactly where Gawande takes us next.
Okay.
He dives into the psychology of aging, specifically the research of Laura Carstensen, and something called socio-emotional selectivity theory.
Okay.
And this is where things get really interesting.
Okay, so break down this socio-emotional selectivity theory for me.
Okay.
What is it?
Sure.
And how does it change how we think about aging?
Essentially, Carstensen's research suggests that as we get older and our sense of time becomes more limited, our priorities naturally shift.
Okay.
We tend to focus less on achievement and accumulating things
Okay.
and more on enjoying the present moment
Right.
and nurturing our closest relationships.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, is this shift purely because of age?
Right.
Or is it about perspective? Because I know plenty of younger people who already prioritize experiences and relationships over, say, climbing the career ladder.
You raise a really interesting point. Carstensen herself actually had a near-death experience when she was only 21.
Oh.
Which profoundly changed her own outlook on life.
So it's almost like facing our mortality, whether through age or experience, can trigger this shift in what we value most.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And that has huge implications.
Okay.
Not just for individuals as they navigate their own aging process, but for how we design care and support for older adults.
Right.
If their priorities are shifting toward connection and meaningful experiences, how do we create environments that nurture those needs?
Right. Instead of just focusing on physical safety and medical care, maybe we need to think about how to foster a sense of purpose and belonging, even in settings like nursing homes.
Which brings us to one of the most inspiring parts of being mortal.
Okay.
The story of Dr. Bill Thomas and his Eden alternative.
Okay.
You're not going to believe this,
Okay.
but he actually convinced a nursing home to bring in 100 birds plus a bunch of dogs.
100 birds. Seriously.
And plants.
100 birds.
Yes.
That's wild.
I know, right?
What was he trying to achieve with that?
He recognized that traditional nursing homes were often sterile and isolating environments, and he wanted to shake things up.
Okay.
His idea was to create a more vibrant and stimulating atmosphere.
Okay.
One that tapped into the basic human need for connection and a sense of purpose.
And what happened? Did all that animal and plant life actually make a difference?
The results were remarkable.
Really?
The nursing home saw a decrease in medication use.
Wow.
Residents were more alert and engaged.
Okay.
And there was even a drop in mortality rates.
Wow, that's incredible.
I know, right?
It's almost like bringing life into the nursing home actually brought life back into the residents.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thomas believed that it wasn't just about the animals and plants themselves, but about tapping into that deeper human need for engagement and a sense of belonging. It's like that idea of loyalty that the philosopher Josiah Royce talked about. Finding meaning by devoting ourselves to something beyond ourselves. Whether it's our family, a community, or even caring for a pet.
So it sounds like the Eden alternative really flips the script on what a care facility could be, instead of just being a place where people go to be kept safe and looked after. It became a place where they could actually thrive. Are there other examples of this kind of innovative approach out there?
Definitely.
Oh.
Gawande takes us on a tour of some fascinating assisted living facilities that are really pushing the boundaries.
Okay.
One that stood out to me is Newbridge on the Charles.
Okay.
It's a Jewish-sponsored facility.
Okay.
That feels more like a college campus than a nursing home.
Tell me more about Newbridge.
Right.
What makes it so different?
Well, they have individual apartments.
Okay.
Bustling social environment, all sorts of and even classes for residents.
Wow.
It's not just about keeping people busy,
Right.
but about providing opportunities for engagement, intellectual stimulation, and continued growth.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
It sounds like they're really embracing the idea that learning and personal development don't have to stop just because you're getting older.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And what's even more inspiring is that they don't just cater to wealthy residents.
Okay.
Gawande contrasts Newbridge with a place called Sanborn Place, which has limited resources, but still manages to provide individualized care and create a supportive community.
I love that.
Yeah.
It shows that it's not necessarily about fancy amenities.
Right.
It's about having a compassionate and flexible approach that puts residents' needs first.
Yeah.
What are some of the stories that stuck with you from these places?
There was one resident at Newbridge, Rita Khan,
Okay.
who, despite physical limitations, finds so much joy in taking classes and advocating for causes she cares about.
That's great.
And then at Sanborn Place,
Yeah.
there's this heartwarming story about a resident named Beth, who was finally reunited with her son with cerebral palsy after being separated in a traditional nursing home.
It really highlights how a more person-centered approach can make a world of difference.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it all comes back to that idea of autonomy,
Yeah.
which doesn't have to mean complete independence.
Right.
Gawande argues for a more nuanced understanding of autonomy,
Oh,
where it's about having the freedom to shape your life in accordance with your character and values,
right.
even when you require assistance to do so.
That's a powerful distinction.
Yeah.
Because it means that even in the face of increasing limitations, we can still maintain a sense of agency and purpose.
And this becomes even more crucial as we age.
Right.
As we face decisions about our care and how we want to spend the time we have left.
Which brings us to one of the toughest topics Gawande tackles.
Oh, yeah.
Those difficult conversations about end-of-life choices.
It's a hard one.
It's something most of us avoid.
Yeah.
But he approaches it with such honesty and sensitivity.
He really does.
Yeah.
He shares the story of Sarah Monopoly,
Okay.
a young mother battling lung cancer who grapples with the pressure to pursue aggressive treatment,
Right.
even when the odds aren't in her favor.
Yeah.
It makes you think about the importance of understanding our own priorities and values
Right.
when facing these kinds of decisions.
It's not just about fighting for every possible day.
Yeah.
It's about making choices that align with what makes life truly meaningful.
Exactly.
I think that's where palliative care specialists can play such a crucial role.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They help patients and families understand their options, weigh the benefits and burdens of different treatments, and ultimately make choices that are aligned with their goals,
Right.
regardless of the prognosis.
Gawande even cites research showing that patients who receive palliative care alongside their usual oncology care often experience a better quality of life and live longer.
Yeah.
It's almost counterintuitive.
It is.
But it shows the power of focusing on what truly matters to the patient.
It's about shifting the focus from simply extending life to enhancing the quality of life that remains.
And there's this fascinating example he gives about the community of La Crosse, Wisconsin, where they have unusually low end-of-life hospital costs.
Wow.
And a higher life expectancy than the national average.
That's interesting.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
Yeah.
What's their secret?
Right.
Some fancy new medical technology.
Surprisingly, it's much simpler than that. They have a strong culture of advanced care planning, where most residents have written directives outlining their wishes for end-of-life care.
So they're having those tough conversations before a crisis hits.
Exactly.
Which makes it easier for everyone involved to honor their wishes. That makes a lot of sense.
And it's not about hastening death.
Right.
But about ensuring that medical interventions align with individual values and priorities in the final chapter.
Yeah.
It's about empowering people to shape the narrative of their own dying.
This is where Gawande's personal experience with his own father's illness becomes so powerful. He takes us through that incredibly poignant journey.
Yeah.
From diagnosis to the tough decisions about treatment
Right.
and ultimately to finding peace in hospice care.
His father's story is so relatable,
Yeah.
especially the part about finding the right doctor,
Right.
one who truly listens, understands the patient's priorities,
Yeah.
and guides them through this difficult terrain with compassion and honesty.
I was particularly moved by the unexpected transformation Gawande's father went through after retiring from surgery. It seemed like losing that central part of his identity would be devastating.
Right.
But he found a new sense of purpose and meaning in his work with the Rotary Club.
It's a testament to the resilience of the human spirit
Yeah.
and our ability to find meaning and connection even in the face of loss and limitations.
Right.
It also reinforces the importance of autonomy, not just in making choices about medical care, but in how we define our sense of self and purpose as we age.
So after exploring all these diverse stories and perspectives,
Yeah.
what are some of the key takeaways you'd say Gawande wants us to understand
Right.
about navigating these later chapters of life? What's the so what of it all?
I think the core message is that our focus shouldn't just be on extending life,
Okay.
but on making the most of the time we have.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing that aging and death aren't failures of medicine,
Right.
but natural parts of the human experience.
He encourages us to think about what truly matters in life, to have those difficult conversations with our loved ones,
Yeah.
and to advocate for care that supports our individual values and priorities.
Right.
He also highlights the vital role of hospice care in providing comfort and support for the terminally ill and their families. He shares this really touching story about Peg Batchelor,
Yeah.
a music teacher with ALS,
Right.
who finds peace and fulfillment
Yeah.
in continuing to teach her student Hunter right up until the very end.
It's a beautiful example of
Yeah.
how even in the face of a terminal illness,
Right.
there's still room for joy, connection, and purpose.
Right.
It's not about giving up on life,
Yeah.
but finding meaning in the time that remains.
And Gawande's own father's experience with hospice really highlights that.
It does.
He talks about the importance of managing pain,
Right.
preserving dignity,
Yeah.
and creating an environment where those final weeks can be filled with moments of connection and joy.
It's powerful.
That's a powerful reminder that even in those final moments, the quality of life matters immensely.
Absolutely.
So after going through all this,
Yeah.
what would you say is the most impactful lesson Gawande leaves us with in being mortal?
I think he wants us to move away from this idea of simply fighting against death
Okay.
and shift our focus to living well, even as our bodies and minds start to decline.
Right.
It's about recognizing that aging and death are not medical failures,
Right.
but natural parts of life.
He's urging us to define what makes life worth living,
Absolutely.
even when we're facing our own mortality, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
He really emphasizes the importance of maintaining the integrity of our lives, our sense of self, our values, our relationships.
Right.
He wants us to avoid becoming so diminished that who you are becomes disconnected from who you were or who you want to be.
That's such a powerful way to put it.
It is, isn't it?
It makes you think about how you want to approach aging, how you envision a good death,
Right.
and what steps you can take now
Yeah.
to ensure your later chapters are meaningful and fulfilling, even with the challenges.
Right.
What can we do to keep those connections to our past and future selves strong?
I think a lot of it comes down to having those honest conversations
Yeah.
with loved ones
Yeah.
about our values and wishes,
Right.
making choices that align with those values,
Yeah.
and finding ways to stay engaged and connected to the things that bring us joy and purpose.
It's not just passively accepting the inevitability of death,
Right.
but taking an active role in shaping the narrative of our lives.
Yeah.
Right up until the very end.
Exactly.
This has been such an insightful deep dive.
It has.
Your perspective on being mortal has really helped unpack these complex
Yeah.
and often overlooked aspects of life and death.
My pleasure.
Oh, it's been great.
Being Mortal is one of those books that stays with you.
Yeah.
And I hope our conversation will encourage everyone listening to think deeply about these themes
Right.
and how they apply to their own lives.
And everyone listening,
Yes.
we leave you with this final thought, inspired by Atul Gawande. How can you, in your own life, ensure that who you are remains connected to who you were and who you want to be?
It's a big question.
What steps can you take now to shape the narrative of your later years?
Yeah, until next time, keep diving deep.
Absolutely.